Thank you for that piece of advice. All right, again, welcome everybody. My name is Fallon Ballasone. I'm the Director of School Counseling, and we also have Principal Sanchez here if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Mr. Sanchez, the principal at Columbia High Schools. My first year, so I'm a freshman at this point, but we are very excited about bringing in our rising freshmen next year. So we're very fortunate to have Ms. Ballasone, and the supervisors work very hard on preparing tonight's presentation. And of course, I bet your students will look forward, your children will look forward to meeting our counseling department as well, which is a great department here.
Yes. Everyone, make sure you're on mute. All right. So for starters, this is just a list of all the people who are going to be really enthusiastically waiting for your students with open arms as they transition over to Columbia next year. So of course, we have myself and Principal Sanchez that you're meeting tonight. The assistant principal for the class of 2025 will be Mr. Patterson, who I'm sure you'll meet at another event we'll have later this spring for our 8th graders coming over. And your student assistance counselor is going to be Mr. Lupus. Hopefully you'll meet him as well at another event this spring. The social worker, Ms. Easton, and then of course their school counselor. What? And your child will get their school counselor assignment this summer when their schedule becomes available on Powerschool. The school counselor's name will be listed there. I'm just asking if everybody could please mute themselves. I think we are getting a little bit of feedback. So please just make sure you take a look down and mute yourself. Thank you. So just a little bit about what the counselor does at Columbia High School. So we do so many things. We're going to be really just advocating for your student day in, day out with whatever may come their way. We do a lot of going into classrooms, running events like this. Of course, we do scheduling, college and career counseling. We are responsible for monitoring your students' graduation progress. So that's one of the primary job responsibilities that the counselor will have. We do a lot of collaboration across the school. So we'll work with your students' team. We always call it, you know, if it's Bobby we're working with, we say, you know, Team Bobby. We're your child's team, whether it be with the teacher, with the child study team, INRS, an administrator. We all try to come together and just be there for your student and you, whatever comes their way at Columbia. We're their #1 advocate. There will be opportunities for your student to meet with their high school counselor, or a high school counselor, I should say, this March. So the date is to be determined still. We'll let you know as soon as we come up with the exact date, but we're thinking the week of March 15th, 16th, that week. We're going to arrange for the high school counselors to virtually come in to the middle schools, meet one-on-one with your child for a few minutes to review their course request. So the goal is for your student to actually have their course request submitted prior to this meeting so that they can review it with the counselor and then of course change it if necessary. They'll be able to make any changes that they want. But the goal is to have the course request to at least be initially submitted by the meeting with the high school counselor in mid-March. So just letting everyone know, again, this night is primarily about the course request process and about scheduling. We will have another night later this spring, just like a 9th grade transition night of Welcome to Columbia, where we just talk more about the different supports at the high school, about athletics and clubs, and like some of the other fun things that go on at the high school. But tonight is going to be more about scheduling and course requests. So just some of the differences between middle school and high school in our district. The major difference that we try to teach students about as soon as they get here is that when you take a class at the high school, it's credit bearing, right? You're working to earn credits that will ultimately allow you to graduate high school. We're going to talk a little bit more about credits in a minute, but it's important to note that there are certain things that a student has to do in order to earn the credits. Not only academically pass the class, but they also need to make sure that they're not absent too many times, right? Because if you're absent more than the legally allowable number, then you could lose credit for the class. Also different that we have graduation requirements, right? So in middle school, you kind of just move on to high school after 8th grade. But there's certain classes that you need to pass and earn credit for in order to be able to graduate from high school. Also, one of the big differences is
I thought Mike was going.
A GPA. Okay. Sorry, everybody. If you could just mute yourself or give me 1 second to try to see here how to mute everybody. Sorry about that. Thank you for the instructions. I really appreciate that. Don't see that ability here to mute everybody, unfortunately. Okay. Nope, it's not there. All right, we're trying to work on this. Principal Sanchez is helping me connect with IT to try to figure out how to make that work. So,
Michael, boy, calm down.
sorry, everybody, about that. Okay. So GPA is something we're going to talk more about in 1 minute. And the other thing to remember that's different about high school is that we have requirements to certain classes in high school that you may take. So it's all detailed in our program of studies. We're going to talk a little bit more about it tonight, but it's kind of important to think ahead for classes that you might want to take at Columbia and check to see if there are any prerequisites, courses that you would need to take prior to being able to take that course, so that you can kind of plan out the whole 4-year plan and make sure that you take anything that you may need to. Okay.
Is it just me here? It's literally just me here.
All right. Whoever's speaking right now, can you please mute yourself? Okay. So at Columbia, of course, there's going to be more students. We're all going to come together. There's going to be about 500 or more 9th graders next year. But with that comes more opportunities, lots of fun things that we're really excited to be able to introduce your students to, and a lot more course offerings, of course. But also with that comes more responsibility. So sometimes there's more homework. A lot of our students say a lot more homework than in the middle school. And just a little bit more self-advocacy that we start to help students learn and start to expect from them as they progress through high school. So here's a little bit about credits. Thank you, everybody, for your ideas in the chat. I appreciate that. Okay. So at the high school, we have courses that can be worth any of the following number of credits. It's either a full year course worth 5 credits, a semester course worth 2.5 credits, or a quarter course worth 1.25. And the only thing that would be a quarter course is phys ed or health. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But keep in mind, most 9th graders take 35 credits per year, which is a 1 through 8 schedule. This is a big question that we often get is, am I going to have a 9th period? That's kind of something that's talked about a lot coming into the high school. Our 9th period at the end of the day from 2:15 to 3 o'clock is our conference period. So that's when students are able to meet with teachers for extra help and everything like that. So most 9th graders stick to that 35 credits period 1 through 8 schedule, and they reserve that 9th period to be able to take advantage of the conference time with the teachers. So that's something to note. You will hear a friend, a neighbor taking 40 credits, a 1 through 9 schedule. That is technically allowable. It's not necessarily encouraged for a 9th grader, but it is allowable, especially for some of our students who are in our music ensembles and hope to be for all 4 years. That allows them to remain in the music ensemble and also be able to take another elective on top of that. So it's allowable, but we recommend that freshmen take 35 credits 1 through 8 to reserve that 9th period conference period. So in order to progress to each grade level, you need to earn another 30 credits. So while most of our students are enrolled in 35 credits per year, in order to move on to the next grade, you need to pass at least 30 of those credits. So keep in mind, to become a 10th grader, your child needs to have earned at least 30 credits and so on and so forth until it's the 120 mark in order to graduate. That's our big number that we're working towards.
Wait,
So here is a list of the graduation requirements in order to graduate high school in the state of New Jersey. So you do need 4 years of 2 different subjects, English and phys ed and health. So those are the 2 subjects that you need 4 years in order to graduate. For math, science, and social studies, you only need 3 years. We're going to be encouraging your student to stick with those subjects as well for all 4 years. So although it may not be a graduation requirement, our school counselors are going to be encouraging your children to stick with all those for 4 years. There's actually only 1 year of world language required to graduate high school in New Jersey. But again, the counselors will be encouraging your children to take 3, if not 4 years of world language. Most 4-year colleges are looking for at least 2 to 3 years of the same language. Sticking with it for 4 years can really set you apart depending on what your goals are and what you're planning on applying to college for, if you're planning on applying to college at all. So there's some wiggle room there, but we do encourage at least 3 years of the same world language. And then we have some elective requirements here. We have visual arts and visual and performing arts. A year of that is required. We're going to talk more about what those are. We'll also talk more about the 21st Century Life and Careers credits. And everybody is required to take a financial literacy course. So we're going to go more into detail about these as you start to think about which courses your student is going to pick. Okay. So one of the big questions moving into 9th grade is, are you ready for honors? Because as we're about to speak about, the big decision for most of these courses for 9th grade is either taking it academic or taking it honors. So this is really the #1 discussion that we're hoping that you can start to have at home as a family as we move into these March dates of meeting with the counselor in mid-March and then having the course request due March 26th. So what are some things to think about? You don't have to take all courses honors, but we do encourage our students to go for it, right? And maybe consider taking at least 1 course honors or 2, and think about which classes you're really, really interested in. Those are the ones that you want to try for honors in. You want to make sure that you're a student who submits work on time. There is going to be more work for honors courses. So if you happen to be somebody who turns things in late often, that could end up really penalizing you. So you want to make sure that you're completing all your work on time and have those good study habits. Of course, motivation. We want you to want to be in honors and want to learn and be excited about this and kind of want to show that rigor in high school, whatever your future plans may be after. Responsible. So this is something that sometimes comes later in high school, and that's okay. But you want to be able to see glimmers of responsibility in yourself or in your student in order to kind of go for honors here. And that's something that is developed in time, and that's something that we're going to be working with your students on. But it's an expectation for being in an honors course. And most importantly, you should be comfortable seeking help. There is a lot of help at the high school to be had, a lot. We have free tutoring. We have the conference time with the teachers. We have a lot of different mentoring programs and opportunities for your child to get help. So being comfortable doing that is also something that we'll work with your student on, because we know not everybody comes to high school ready for that, but it's something that we will have to work on if you do pick honors. So these are just some of the things to think about. Again, we encourage all of our students to consider taking at least 1 honors course in 9th grade. It's also important to think that this is all a path to becoming an AP student. There are no AP courses, which are advanced placement courses, college level courses. There are none of those available for the 9th grade at this time at Columbia High School, but they do start to become available in 10th grade. So by trying some of the honors courses in 9th grade and being able to work on some of the items here on this slide and be able to show that, you can really live up to the challenge, that's preparing you for taking an AP course in 10th grade or even in 11th grade. We really would love to see all of our students take at least 1 AP course during their time at Columbia. There's a lot of benefits to it. You can earn college credit. It looks great on your transcript if you are interested in applying to college. And it's a great experience for our students. Our students love their AP courses and teachers at Columbia. So this is all, you know, a starter conversation about where you want to end up being as a Columbia High School student in future years. So one of the big implications of taking academic versus honors and making that decision for ninth grade is what it will do to your GPA. So in high school, every class that you take, you end up with a final grade in. And that final grade is assigned to a GPA, a grade point average. It's a numerical value of the letter grade. So this is a visual of our GPA grade, which is also in the program of studies. So you can take a look at it yourself anytime you'd like. But as you can see here, we assign 2 GPAs to our students, an unweighted GPA, which is in that first column, and then a weighted GPA, which you'll see in the later columns. So for the unweighted GPA, it's simple. You get a final grade, you get a letter grade at the end of the year, and there's a numerical value associated with that. It gets averaged out, and that's your unweighted GPA for the year. The weighted GPA, as you can see, is more complicated because there are several numerical values for the letter grade, depending on which class you're in. Academic, honors, and then later in high school, AP could be an option. And you'll notice that the numerical value of the letter grade goes up as the course rigor goes up. So like a B plus in an academic class is a 3.67, but in an honors class it's a 4.0. So you can have a higher GPA in the end for having gone for that honors class and getting that same grade as you might have in the academic. So this is just an important thing to note, is that there is a GPA implication to choosing honors versus academic and later AP in high school. So a lot of people like to see this visual of what the periods kind of break down as. Back to this conversation about like having a 1 through 8 schedule versus a 1 through 9 schedule. So this is almost like a little visual. If you could just see like the periods along the side here. We do have required courses for ninth graders, and those would take up 6 of the periods. We, of course, strongly recommend doing world language, even though it wouldn't be required technically in ninth grade. We strongly recommend that. So that's the 7th period. And then the 8th period is your elective period. And the 9th is conference. So, of course, it's not the order that your child is going to have their classes. It's just kind of breaking down what a 1 through 8 schedule means, being able to retain that conference period at the end of the day. If your child does pick 40 credits, then they're sacrificing that 9th period conference period, the ability to see their teachers during that time. So we're going to kind of break this down one option at a time. These are all the decisions that you and your student are going to have to make for next year. So the first is English. All 9th graders take English 1. Their decision is academic or honors. All 9th graders take math. This one's a little bit more confusing because we do have students in all areas of the trajectory of math. So your child's going to have to pick the next course in the sequence. This is the sequence. So if they're currently in pre-algebra in 8th grade, then they're going to be selecting Algebra 1 next year, which is only offered at academic. If they're currently in Algebra 1 now, they'll be selecting geometry, either academic or honors. If they're in geometry now, they'll be selecting Algebra 2, academic or honors, so on and so forth. This is the trajectory. We want to make a really important plug right now for the Summer Math Advancement Program, which is held every summer. Letters are sent out from our STEM department in the spring. It'll be emailed to whatever email address is in Powerschool for the parents, guardians. It also goes out to the students, so please keep your eyes peeled for that. Our Summer Math Advancement Program allows you to move ahead on the trajectory. So right now, if you're in pre-algebra slated for Algebra 1 next year, you can actually take Algebra 1 over the summer for full credit and GPA points, and then start with geometry in 9th grade to move along on the trajectory. Why would anybody do this? Because it can help you get to calculus, which is, the final end of our trajectory of math at Columbia. And it would be a class that some competitive four-year colleges would be expecting on the transcript. So we do offer this opportunity every summer. If you don't take us up on the opportunity this year, that's fine. You can do it next summer. But there is the opportunity to move ahead in the trajectory. And we do want all of our students to ultimately be able to get to calculus. So it's just something to keep in mind. There will be more information coming out about this. But this is just an important plug that we wanted to make to remember that we do have the math advancement program. Back to an easy decision. Well, not easy, but a simple one. All ninth graders take biology. The option is academic or honors. All ninth graders take world history 2. The option is academic or honors. A lot of people ask here about World History 2. They feel like it sounds like a 10th grade class because there's a 2 after it, but it's just called World History 2 because it's an extension of what the 8th graders are currently learning in social studies. So it's called World History 2, but it's a 9th grade class, and it's the first class in our history trajectory. I hope you all like the pictures I found for this presentation. I had fun. Okay. World language. So here are the languages that we offer. Our introductory courses here are Italian, French, Chinese, and Spanish 1 courses are offered academic. But some of our students already have started with Spanish 1 in 8th grade, so they do have the option of doing Spanish 2, academic or honors. And earlier in the evening, someone asked about the opportunity to test into a higher level, and I provided the name of our world language supervisor, Dr. Robles, who you can contact about that. But it is going to be time for your student to pick a language. Students can end up changing their language during high school, and some of our students do that. It's just important to keep in mind that you always want to check the requirements of any college that you may be considering, because some of them do have particular recommendations of what they would prefer in terms of 2 years or at least 3 years of the same world language. So while it's okay to switch, you're always going to want to go back and double check any college's requirements about that. All right. Electives. So this is kind of the fun part. We need you to choose your first choice electives, which should equal at least 5 credits. So if you kind of think back to that slide where I laid out the periods, it's a period worth of electives. The confusing part here is that some of our electives are a full year course, which would take up the full period, and some of our electives are half-year courses. So you would pick 2 of those to take up the full period. And then we also need you to choose backup or alternate electives, your student's second choice electives, where if they weren't able to get their first choice because it didn't fit in their schedule or whatever reason, we would then go and try to get them into those alternate electives. So we also need you to pick a total of at least 5 additional credits for this. So it's a total of 10 credits of electives that we're asking you to pick, 5 first choice credits and 5 second choice credits. So again, this is kind of explaining that you pick 5 credits by either picking 1 course worth 5 credits like Art 1 or 2 courses worth 2.5 credits each, like drawing and design. So when I get onto our elective slides, you'll also be able to see that a little bit more visually. So these are the visual and performing arts electives that we offer at Columbia High School. You ultimately will need to fulfill 5 credits worth from this area in order to graduate. It doesn't have to be in 9th grade. It can be in 10th, 11th, or 12th grade. So it's just a matter of what your child is most interested in starting with in 9th grade. Everything in blue is available to 9th graders. You will notice each year that more and more electives become available to students, but this is what's available for 9th graders. And this is our 21st Century Life and Careers. Also, 5 credits are ultimately required to graduate, but do not have to be in 9th grade. It can be any year. So it's really important that you spend some time reading the program of studies with your student and reading all of the course descriptions for these courses to figure out what's of most interest to your student. For 9th grade, I don't think you need to worry too much about fulfilling any of these electives, because whatever you take is going to start to become a requirement, right? So it almost doesn't even matter in 9th grade. I would focus more on what's most interesting to you as a student, so that we can just set you up for having a great transition to Columbia and that you're like already excited about 1 or 2 of your classes that you picked. So I would focus more on that and less on fulfilling the requirement, which will absolutely happen without a doubt in the 4 years of high school. And then this is the financial literacy elective. There's 2 courses that could fulfill this requirement, personal finance or econ. And personal finance is the one that's available to 9th graders if your child is particularly interested in getting started with this and wanting to move ahead with that. Okay, so I'm just going to give a very quick little tutorial, screenshots of what this is going to look like in Powerschool, how to actually submit the request, and then we're going to go to the chat and take all of your questions. So your student is going to log on to Powerschool, or you can log on to Powerschool. You can do it through either portal. And you're going to go over to the class registration link. This should now be live for everybody. So if you wanted to check it out after tonight, it should be live for you. I turned it on this morning. So it should be there. There's a link to our program of studies, which is also posted on our website, also posted in Spanish and Haitian Creole, so everybody can take a look. You'll notice that there will already be some courses in here for your child. It should be lunch and PE should be in here as mandatory courses. You don't have to select those. Everybody has to take them, and we select them for your student automatically. Then you're going to start going down the list, and you're going to be clicking on this little pencil that you'll see for each subject. So for English, math, science, they're each going to have a little pencil that you're just going to click right on, and the options for that course are going to pop up. And you're going to be able to kind of click through there. Keep in mind that sometimes there's 2 pages of options, so you might need to also look at the second page to see all of your options for that area. You're going to select the course that you want by checking off the box and clicking OK. You'll know that all is well because you'll end up having a green check mark there now. Just a little quick reminder to make sure you pick those alternate electives that I mentioned, those second choice electives. Don't forget that part. If you try to submit, don't worry, you can't really mess this up, because if there's something horribly wrong and you try to submit, this type of window is going to pop up with your submission errors explaining what happened. So don't worry, you can't completely mess this up. And if for some reason you did, you would just reach out to us and it's no problem, we can fix it. So it's no stress. This is no stress. I just want everybody to try to do this. And the goal is to have these submitted before mid-March by the counselor meeting at the middle school. But no worries, because we can always go in and change anything that you want to change, any errors. So nothing to stress about.
Ms.
And then in the
Balsam,
end, you'll just submit it.
quick question.
And then this will be what shows up under class registration once it's submitted. You'll be able to see the list of courses that you've picked with the credits and what it all equals and everything like that. So just some quick reminders before we get to the Q&A. You can edit and change these online requests until March 26th. So you can sit there tonight and put in all of your requests. And then tomorrow morning, you could decide, oh, I changed my mind, go in and change them, no problem. The next day, go in and change them again. You can continue to change until March 26th when we're going to lock it. At that point, you can't make any changes until you get your schedule over the summer. And then we will have a process for requesting schedule changes. But keep in mind, those are only going to be at an as available type of status, right? Because we build the whole master schedule and arrange the teachers and everything based on the initial requests that your children make. That's how we create the schedule. So while we of course try to accommodate any changes that are requested, it's only on an as available basis. So you really want to take the time now and do a lot of research now to figure out which courses you want to select, since no changes will be guaranteed after March 26th. Another reminder about the Summer Math Advancement Program, can't say it enough, please be aware of it, that you can move ahead on the math trajectory through our Summer Math Advancement Program. More information coming from our STEM department on that this spring. And we encourage everyone to challenge themselves. I know it can be scary thinking about coming up to the high school, it's the unknown for sure, especially for those who don't have a sibling who've been through it already. But we're here to support you, and we say go for it. And of course, go Cougars. So with that said, I'm hoping that when I stop sharing this, I may have more control over the muting situation. So we are happy to start looking at now and taking some questions.
I have a quick question, Ms. Ballasone. Can you hear me?
Yep, I'm going to turn my volume up right now. Now I can hear you.
Okay. So my question is, if a parent is going into, or a child, into the scheduling process, right? I saw that the English, there was like AP language or AP literature. Would they be able to click on those senior classes or no?
No, it's only going to actually pop up. The only option for you that will pop up is English 1, academic, or honors.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, the only courses that will even pop up are ones that are available to 9th grade. And so it's pretty simple in the ninth grade, but as you go through this each year, only the classes for your grade pop up. And if you don't have a prerequisite for something, you won't be able to click on something. So it's all kind
that's so
of set up.
nice.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. All right. Let me take a look now and see if I have this muted.
There was a question.
Now I'm able to click mute all. While I was sharing it, I was unable to select it, but here we go. Okay. All right. Oh, but now I'm mute you. Oh no.
That's okay. I can unmute myself.
Okay, perfect. All right.
So it asked a question about, are students guaranteed certain classes, or are they first come, first serve, specifically the elective classes?
So they're only first come, first serve in the sense that we do run the seniors first and then the juniors, sophomores, and freshmen. So if there is an elective that's available to all the grades, the seniors will have first dibs on that. But in terms of like the date or time that you press submit, it's not first come, first serve amongst the rising ninth graders. It's just by seniority.
And we do create our sectioning after we have all the input. So we might add an extra section this year than we did last year based on, budgetary constraints and needs, but based also on student preference.
Of course. All right. Should I scroll to the top of this chat? It's long and loaded. All right. Okay. Oh, so someone did ask in the beginning about option 2. So we are planning on being able to offer option 2 next year at this point, which means that if your child plays a sport, they can opt out of phys ed for that quarter, as long as it's not their health class. If it's the quarter that they have health, they cannot opt out of that. And there's no changing which quarter they have health. But if your child happens to have phys ed quarter during which they are in a sport, playing a sport, then they can earn their PE credit through the sport. And we'll have more information about that coming this June. So we are going to have another just like general welcome to Columbia High School event for you all later in the spring, right, Principal Sanchez? And at that meeting, I think we'll talk more about athletics and clubs and that kind of stuff. And we'll have some other guests with us who can speak more specifically to that.
Well, we think it's very important for our freshmen to participate, to really get to know the school and to know the community. So it makes a lot of sense, and we definitely pushed out almost every week, all the information about clubs for our freshmen this year. So we do think it's important to participate and get connected.
Really great question here about if ninth graders can work on the design team for the Columbian, our award-winning newspaper. So we do have a really exciting change happening for next year. Previously, like this year and prior years, the answer would have been no. But we're actually changing the way that we structure the Columbian, and it's going to become an extracurricular activity that anybody can join. So we're really excited about that. It's going to be able to get more students involved. So more information will be available about that as an extracurricular next year. So that's exciting. Okay, what is a student assistance counselor? Great question. So our student assistance counselors are here for anything that's non-academic. So while the school counselor is always the tier 1 support, and your student would always come to their school counselor first if anything were going on at all, if the school counselor had an elevated concern that they felt needed more of a clinical perspective, then we would bring in our student assistance counselor, who would be Mr. Lupus for your students, and he would be able to assess the situation and meet with your student and make sure that their mental health was okay and everything like that. So we all work together. We're all a team, but that's their specific responsibility. Will counselor assignments be the same for siblings who were already at CHS? So not automatically, but I am happy to honor that request. That's the only type of counselor change request that I will ever honor, is sibling consistency. We understand that that makes total sense if you already have a relationship with the family. So I ask that you submit those requests to me earlier rather than later, like before the school year starts, just that we could work that out prior. I actually would ask you to let me know about that prior to July when the schedules come out. So hopefully when we do the initial assignments, we don't have to do a lot of changing after that. So you can just shoot me an email and I'll kind of take note of that and make sure we keep the family consistency going. Okay, I think this may have been answered, but we do have about 200 students per counselor, which is a good ratio for us. We're very happy about that. And yes, we also have an answer here about STEM night, which is happening next week, right? Principal
That is correct. It's
Okay.
the 18th. I think I put the date on it.
Oh, thank you. Okay, thank you. All right, the expected number of freshmen for the class of 2025 will be about 500. All right. Thanks again, everyone, for all your tips here about the muting. Oh, I'm so sorry. That must have been a typo. All the quarters are 1.25 credits. I'll have to fix that. I'm sorry. Yes, 1.25 credits for a quarter course. And those would only be Phys Ed and Health 9 for your students. They take 3 quarters of Phys Ed and then the 1 quarter of Health 9. And we automatically schedule them for that. So we actually do something called arena scheduling, which is kind of fun. The first day of school during the Phys Ed period, all the students go to the main gym. And all the phys ed teachers for that period are standing there with like a little sign and a little description of the class that they're going to be teaching, because we have a lot of fun different classes, like badminton and all kinds of like basketball, volleyball, and the students can then pick what they want that day, and we schedule them for their activity that day. But we're going to take care of that part. They don't pick any. We'll take care of phys ed and health.
So there's a question about sports. Is it okay to try a new sport? Absolutely. You know, there are 3 seasons, and you don't have to specialize in a sport and do that. So of course you can try out for any sport you would like, and of course I think that's a great idea.
Okay. So
there's a question about Votech.
Oh, great.
So how do you apply for Votech programs?
So we have a shared time relationship with Union County Votech, which is something that is a 2 or 3 year shared time relationship. So I'll go back to the other part of that later, but for the Union County Votech Shared Time Program, they have 1 3-year shared time program with us, which is cosmetology. So if your child was interested in cosmetology, they would have to apply for that in February of their freshman year. And then they would start at sophomore year and spend half the day at Columbia, half the day at Votech for the next 3 years. All the other shared time programs through Union County Votech are 2-year shared time programs. So your child would apply for that in February of their sophomore year and would then spend junior and senior year doing half and half the day at Columbia, half the day at Union County Votech. There is Essex County Votech, which does have a 4-year full-time program, which where your child would be applying for now, if that's what they wanted to do. But most of our students take advantage of the shared time program, where they would do half a day at Columbia, half a day at Votech. But please definitely talk to your student's counselor about that if you're interested in Essex County Votech. There is an option to take personal finance online through a program called Money Skill that we offer. The information about that is in the program of studies if you wanted to read more about it. And the instructions for registering for that would come out each spring prior to each session that we run. So you can just keep an eye out for that. It's free. And a lot of our students do take advantage of it, especially those who are maybe in a music ensemble or some kind of 4-year program for electives and don't have as much flexibility in their schedule to fit in the class. Okay. There is a fee associated with summer math advancement. Last year it was $350 for the course, but there are scholarships available for financial need. So information about that will be coming out with the program.
I think there's a big question here, like how do we know which level to enroll, honors or academic?
So,
and I know you tackled that a little earlier, but
yeah, I mean, it's just thinking about some of those items. I feel like this is going to be a really challenging year to make this decision because we don't want to necessarily just gauge it based on how our students are doing at this current moment, since I know for a lot of our students, this has not necessarily been a standard year for them. I think you all know what I'm talking about. So, you know, some of our students are doing great, but some are really, really, really struggling. And so I think it's hard to gauge kind of what this is going to mean for next year. But if you have a student who's always done well in school and cares about trying hard and doing well, let's push them. Let's encourage them to try at least one honors in maybe the subject that they're most interested in, right? If you have a student who's doing great right now and has never really skipped a beat, then go for it. Do all of the honors, I would say. But I think we're talking about our students who maybe have been struggling, haven't always been a straight A student. Let's still encourage them to at least try one honors class. Just so you know, there is the opportunity to move down out of honors if your child is really, really struggling once the year starts. So there is the opportunity for that. They won't necessarily be stuck in it. So I feel like everyone should kind of go for it and try it. And then if it's really horrible, we could always move you down into the other class. Okay. Some of the questions seem private. So if you did ask me a private question, I would just encourage you to maybe email me afterwards.
There was a question about AP Economics as a class. That is not a course that we offer now, but it is one that we are investigating to perhaps bring in by the time your child is an upperclassman. You never know. We are adding courses every year. I will say, though, it would not be a practical arts requirement, or it probably wouldn't, because a social studies teacher would probably teach it, and therefore it would not be a practical arts requirement in that sense. So we are always looking for feedback from students, and we see when students do kind of independent studies, maybe that's where we start to move. But I will say this, if you look at the program of studies, we offer so many courses, not just AP, but honors classes that are really unique, I think, to Columbia High School, which is one of probably the most attractive things about this this high school. The students have so many choices and courses to pick, and it's very exciting. But yes, we are looking at AP Economics, micro and macro. There's actually two courses there.
Yeah, I think those would be well received for sure.
There was a question about option 2 with Ultimate Frisbee. I will say that we do offer option 2 for programs that are outside of the high school sporting program. And one of the big contingents or reasons, or not reasons, things would need to be competition, and then also the amount of aerobic activity. So I'm not familiar with the Ultimate Frisbee if that happened in the past. But
Ultimate Frisbee, you can definitely do option 2 for.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, lots of questions here about like students with IEPs and 504s. Can they still sign up for honors? Of course, you still sign up for honors. Go for it. We'll give you whatever services, are in your IEP. Do students have the same counselor all 4 years? Yes, I know some of you with older siblings on here may be rolling your eyes at that, but of course there's always turnover. There's always people going on maternity leave. So things do happen, but we don't change your child's counselor assignment. They stay with the same for all.
Right. I think some schools also have like a freshman, just a freshman counselor. And then we feel it's better to kind of foster that relationship and have them all 4 years.
Yep. Who do we contact with questions about scheduling? So you can contact your student's current school counselor with any questions. And if they're unable to assist you, you can contact me. How often do counselors meet with the kids? I'm actually working on this calendar that I'm hoping to have available on our website next year so everyone can kind of understand what the counselors do throughout the year, since we do have specific things like each month that we're working on with certain students so that you can get an idea of like when your student's going to be up for their formal meeting. That's not to say that your student can't every day, if they want to, request a meeting with the counselor, right? And the counselor can try to schedule that accordingly. So the counselors are always available to your child if they need anything at all or want to talk or say hello, and they want to request a meeting with the counselor. But in terms of like that formal structured meeting where the counselor calls them down, I'm hoping to be able to post a calendar for that. And you'll see on the calendar that we are meeting with students all of the time. So it's as often as possible, but of course, we start with the seniors, right? So in the fall, it's heavy on the seniors. Each senior gets their own fairly long meeting with their family about their post-secondary planning process. So we always make sure, though, that we find ways to see our freshmen, if not individually, seeing them in groups in the beginning of the year to just make sure they know who their counselor is in case they need anything. Okay. All right. If there's any issues at all with the scheduling portal, please send me an email. Like if it's not letting you select a class that you think you should be able to select, just shoot me an email and I'll kind of troubleshoot that and I ask you to try again once it's fixed. Thank you so much for that. Okay. So again, some more questions here about scheduling for special education students. So I'm actually going to be working on entering the request for special education students based on their IEP. So whatever course is in their IEP for next year, you know, pull-out replacement and class support, whatever it is, I'll be able to put in automatically, and then the counselor will be able to review that with your student in mid-March. But for now, they can go in and pick you know, English 1 honors or academic. They can pick their electives, and don't worry about it being a special education course because I'm going to go back in and make sure that everybody's in the right type of section for the course that they picked. So it sounds a little complicated, but the basic answer is don't worry too much about it. You can go in and just pick what you would like and trust that we're going to change it to the right section based on your child's IEP. I have never experienced an instance where a concert band has filled to capacity. We've always been able to have all students who want to participate in our ensembles, our freshman ensembles, be part of that. So the summer math advancement program, it usually goes from early July to the beginning of August. Principal Sanchez, do we know if we're going to try to have that be in person this summer?
I'm sorry, what, the summer program?
The summer math advancement program?
I would hope I would hope so, but I'm an internal optimist and hoping that we're back in the spring. So, I mean, fully back in the spring, but you know, I would hope we would offer it in person. Because those are usually small classes anyway, correct?
Yeah, I mean, and I feel like we have so much space in the building that we'd hopefully be able to make that happen, but who knows? I guess we got to see what the health guidelines are come the summer.
There was a question about, do I take Algebra 1 and then think about taking Algebra 2 over the summer? I think what you should do is come to the STEM night, because there they can go over the best pathways, because again, you can't take, let's say, you can't double up in math during a school year and take Algebra 2 and Precalc, right? Because that's a prerequisite for the other. So you would probably want to take geometry over the summer, right? And so, but again, Mr. M will be a great person to answer that question specifically.
I really like this question here about if your ninth grader doesn't want to take any honors, but may later want to kind of go for an AP, can they? Of course, anybody can take an AP course. There's nothing that you would need to have taken previously in terms of an honors course or not to do that. So they can absolutely still decide to kind of bring up the rigor later in high school if that's what they're more comfortable with. And also, how many honors classes at max do students take? We have a lot of students who take all of their classes honors and do very well.
There was a question that said, for students who want to take a ninth period, would they then select 2 classes for elective? I wrote yes. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. You can select up to 40 credits. You must select 35, so you can do anything in between there.
I can't tell. When I answer it, my answer just goes to the bottom. It doesn't go right next to it.
I know, it's kind of hard to follow the chat. Okay. I'm seeing a lot of questions here about Chinese 2 being available to ninth graders. Let me just double check that with Dr. Robles tomorrow morning. And we can get that fixed in Powerschool, absolutely. So let me just double check with him about Chinese 2 and freshmen. Okay. Thank you for that. Okay, a question here is, are there any opportunities to take practical arts courses online? So we do have an entire section of the program of studies that I'll encourage you to please read called External Coursework. It's about earning any credit outside of the program of studies. And it does explain what you would need to do if you were interested in taking a course on your own outside of Columbia High School and having the credits transfer in. There's a process for that. You would need to have pre-approval from the department supervisor. And of course, you would be responsible for finding the class, financing the class, everything like that, and then ultimately supplying us with the transcript from that class that we can transfer in if it was approved by the supervisor. So there's a whole section on that in the program of studies called External Coursework. I would definitely read that closely, but there are opportunities for that, yes. Principal Sanchez, can you maybe speak to this concern that I hear about a lot, not just from 8th graders, but all the grades, about what our plans will be instructionally to accommodate for any kind of loss this year of learning come in the fall?
Of course. I think we have a great team here of supervisors, as well as our great faculty, veteran faculty, that have been working together all year to kind of, is it Marie Kondo from Netflix, right? Is that who I'm talking about? You know, to Marie Kondo the curriculum, right? Just to get the essential power standards, to get the essential content that our students will need for next year. And so they've been working on that all year, focusing on the scope and sequence of the different classes so that our students are ready for next year's classes. You know, I was a former history teacher, so beyond, you know, we're talking where I'm observing classrooms, talking about, you know, we don't have to go over every single item that we love to talk about or to have students go on and focus on, but just one of these, you know, one certain example, and then go really in depth and really focus on critical thinking, focus on communication and collaboration. Those are the important things. So still continuing with content, but also focusing on skills. And that also has to do with math and English. You know, at this point right now, the state is still requiring, they just announced a few weeks ago, standardized tests, the NJSLA. So we have been working on those skills and that content. So we feel very comfortable that our students will be able to do well. At this point, they will probably be online, but you know, that's something that the state will work with us on in preparing us on how to handle that. But we did that last year here. We did it with AP classes online, so we'll be ready.
And just a little note here for anyone who might be typing questions into the Q&A, please type them into the chat. We are looking at the chat right now. A few good questions here. The recommended amount of credits for ninth graders. We do recommend 35 credits, retaining that ninth period so that your student is available to conference with their teacher. But they can request up to 40 credits, but then they would be missing out on that ninth period conference time with their teacher. Also, lots of questions here about the languages again. So if your student has been studying Spanish in middle school, they would be taking Spanish 2 as a freshman. Spanish 1 for a freshman would only be for someone who hadn't yet started studying Spanish. Also, I'm seeing here that there must be an error somewhere in the system, the request system for selecting roadmap to computing. It's not noting the Algebra 1 prereq. So I'm going to look into that tomorrow and fix that.
Sports and athletic, you can go actually to the Columbia High School website under athletics. We offer in the fall, you know, so many sports. I'm not sure which ones we don't offer, to be honest with you. I mean, we do offer more sports than most school districts. But you can find it under athletics on the school website.
So the counselor meetings in March will not be in person. They will be virtual. And the question is about ninth graders getting to tour the building before the fall. I'm not sure what we'll be able to do this spring, but I know we're going to definitely be looking forward to going back to planning our ninth grade orientation that we normally would do in August, which is a full day before the rest of the grades arrive, where we've always had the ninth graders be able to tour, walk around to their classes, and I'm hoping to also add like some more fun field day type elements to it. So looking forward to that. I don't know what we'll be able to do this spring though. What does HN stand for? HN stands for honors. So if you see HN after the name of a course, that's the honors level of the course. Do students have to choose music like they did in middle school? Nope, they do not have to choose music.
Music would be a fine art though. So if you are not taking music, then please consider an art class or a chorus class, right? Because those are classes you have to have 5 credits in that to graduate.
Right, in visual and performing arts. So it can be,
dance as well.
It could be dance. It could just be like one of our studio art courses, like drawing, design, things like that. It can be a course that becomes available to your child later in high school, like animation or filmmaking. So we have a lot of cool options for that. There's a question here about the orchestra program being multiple grades together. So we have different levels of music ensemble. So the string orchestra is primarily a ninth grade course, and then students would move on to the more advanced ensembles like virtuosi orchestra. So it's a year. String orchestra is 1 year long, 5 credits. You don't have to continue with orchestra if you don't want to past the ninth grade, but if you do want to, you typically move on to an advanced ensemble. That's how that works.
And so there was a question about, are there just freshman electives? So that's an example. PE is just freshmen. We have just freshman PE. Another example, sometimes when you see TV production, we do have it regular and advanced, but if a senior wanted to take regular TV, they could take that, correct?
Right.
Yeah, so that's what high school is like. We have I think a nice mix of grades, but obviously with PE, we do separate our students there.
We do. How many credits do you need to graduate? You do need 120 credits to graduate.
So taking 35 is a great start.
Yeah, that's what we recommend. Well, we require at least 35, and that's what we recommend for ninth grade. But some people do take 40. So parents are not going to be involved in the virtual meetings in March. We've never done that in the past, and this would not be the year to start that since we are already facing the challenge of doing this virtually. It's going to go great. I'm really excited about it, but it's going to be new and different for all of us. So unfortunately, it's not going to happen this year. I am open to that being something that happens in the future. But this is why we're trying to give you guys all the information now and have your child come with the course request is already submitted and already have been discussed with the family. And then, of course, after the conversation with the counselor, they can still make any changes. And there is going to be a letter that the parent is going to have to sign in Powerschool after the course request deadline of March 26th, saying that you've reviewed the course requests in Powerschool and that you agree to them. So we are going to be introducing a parental component that hasn't been there before. And I'm open to the idea of thinking about this type of thing in the future, but no, the parents are not going to be there this year at the virtual check-in. But keep in mind, you can always reach out to your student's counselor, their middle school counselor, to request a meeting to discuss this, because your middle school counselor knows your child pretty well, hopefully, and can help you have that conversation about the academic versus honors, like that big conversation to have. If it's more like a little technical question like some of these, feel free to reach out to me anytime. Is there a swimming pool? Goodbye, swimming pool. No.
It used, unfortunately, I believe it's been 4 years maybe since the pool has had structural issues. Part of the referendum though, is to reinvent certain areas in the high school, including regutting or redoing the media center, and the pool area will be transformed into a new space for students. Unfortunately, it's just cost prohibitive to put in a pool again in that area. It was, I think, to the original 1925 building. However, we still have a swim team, although the team does swim out of the boys club, the Union Boys Club.
So there's some questions here about how to put the requests in Powerschool. So if you go on the Columbia High School website to the counseling page, we do have a whole page on there called the course selection process. And we have all the slides that I just went through with all the screenshots and the detailed instructions of how to actually enter the request. So you can pull that up, and I'll send that out again as a follow-up after this event. I'll send out all the information again as a follow-up and a link to our website where everything's posted. If your child doesn't want to use the conference period, 9th period at Columbia High School, can they leave at 2:15? Yes. So typically a student wouldn't stay every day to use the conference period, but they would definitely plan to stay 2 to 3 days a week maybe and see teachers or get tutoring or anything like that, but they're not required to stay. They can absolutely leave then after that. Okay. Yeah, I think that's a great idea to also reach out to your students' middle school counselors, their eighth grade teachers right now, to have that conversation about academic versus honors. They probably, know them as a student pretty well at this point. So that's not a bad idea, although let's also keep in mind that this year has been a little funky for a lot of our students. But it's not a bad idea to reach out to the teachers and get their ideas at this point. Okay. This is a fun question that I didn't even know was on the docket at all. Is AstroTurf planned for Ritzer?
Actually, it is part of our referendum plan. It's not something that your child will get next year, but will before he or she graduates. They graduate. That will happen. We are, as part of the referendum, we also will be re-turfing. Underhill as well.
Oh,
But yeah, Ritzer will be turfed, not the entire field, but the soccer field. I'm not sure if we're going to turf the project, what's it called? Project Adventure area, because then we'd have to rebuild that. So that might be cost prohibitive. But yes, the soccer field at Ritzer at the very least, and we're hoping maybe to put in a softball field maybe in the caddy corner, but I don't know about balls going into the valley. So we'll see.
I miss sludging through the mud all the time in Ritzer. I'll miss that. Okay. But that's nice. Thank you for this fun question about how can you force your child to join a club. We're going to do the best we can to encourage the students to get involved, especially after everything they've been through this past year and in the next few months. It's going to be so important for them to kind of, jump in and meet people and have some fun stuff to do. So we're going to really try to do our part with encouraging it. I'm not sure how you can force them, but I do strongly recommend that you have them join forces with a friend or a neighbor or somebody and say, all right, we are forcing you all as a little group of friends to do this together. I think that helps rather than, encouraging them to go alone somewhere. But part of our orientation is a club fair. So that'll be a fun way for them to go around and see what interests them. And if you can maybe kind of get a friend to encourage their child too, they can do it together. The clubs do not take place during the day. They do take place after school. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for sending me the errors in the system. I'm going to be working on all of this tomorrow. So if you wanted to try again on Friday, I'm hoping it'll all be fixed. Okay.
There was a question about taking a new instrument, right? And actually, I just interviewed one of our students who is in the all-region orchestra, all-region band, with the bassoon. And he said that the first time he ever played the bassoon was in 9th grade. So he was a musician previously, played piano and other instrument, but then picked up the bassoon in 9th grade. So absolutely. And I know we have great band and orchestra teachers here, and we are so blessed to have the support of the community. Chismipa is constantly, working with our teachers to donate instruments for our students, especially the big heavy ones, so they don't have to bring them back and forth. And I've seen basses come and go in August, so students can have them at home. So absolutely. I would assume you grow into a tuba in high school, right? That's not something you'd pick up in 4th grade.
All right, a question here about can you speak to school safety and security?
Sure. So we have, I think, the biggest concern that I have seen from parental and student feedback is with PE classes and students leaving items in the locker room because the lockers, the backpacks don't fit into the lockers. So we are going to be alleviating that with not only new lockers as part of the referendum, but right now students don't have lockers because of COVID. So we haven't had we wouldn't have a problem this year. But we are looking to put book bags in locked boxes in the gyms so that will be protected. And so I think we'll see a great drop in that issue. We do have security guards in the building, and they really have been ambassadors this week with our freshmen and last week, helping them go, find their classrooms. And we have a great relationship with our security guards.
Okay. Any other questions out there? If we missed your question, I'm so sorry, but feel free to reach out to me or Principal Sanchez, of course, anytime.
So just so we know, we're right now planning our referendum, right? The incredible support from the public for the initiation plan, equity and initiation plan, started in the elementary schools. So the bidding process has already started for those schools. We are about to start the bidding process by next year. And so we will have construction beginning at the end of next year. So your child's freshman year. And so the construction projects are really outside of the building. We're going to be adding 4 classrooms outside. And the inside project, like the pool, will be done over the summer. Over several summers, so not to interrupt your child's academic progress. And we do follow all the safety protocols by the state. So, for example, I think today we had a fire drill, correct?
Yes.
This morning. So we are continuing to follow all of our safety protocols at the high school level that all the other schools follow by state mandate.
I could actually put some links into this chat right now if anybody wants to check out all the documents again about this. Feel free to type any last questions in before we.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's see. I was just moving my desk. Question about construction and the state budget approval. I don't have that information. I haven't heard that information. That's from the state, overall, if that's a specific MAPSO situation. I don't have that information. I'm sorry.
Okay. So we are thinking of adding AP Chinese to the program of studies, and we'll send out a notice once that's in there. We're hoping to possibly have enough requests to run that. So that's something that we are ready to do in our Chinese program rollout.
Yeah, Dr. Robles mentioned that will be, am I still on? Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I just lost my screen because I was clicking on a link. But Dr. Robles just mentioned that that will be there once we have students go through the program all 4 years. So that will be added.
Right. Okay. All right, I know I talked a little bit about the difference between academic versus honors. Principal Sanchez, do you want to weigh in a little bit on your perspective of the difference between academic or honors to hear like a different voice on that?
I hate to give you an example of my own children, right? But I have a ninth grader this year. And so my daughter's just changed districts actually. And that was, a real discussion that we had to have. She did well. She did very well last year as an eighth grader, but struggled with the pandemic. And so just socially and emotionally. And so we weren't sure what to do with that. And so we went back and forth. And at the end of the day, I recommended that she, knowing my daughter well, that she did take as many honors classes as she was in my district. You had to be qualified, but we took as many. And to be honest, she's doing very well. It's time. The biggest issue we thought was adjusting, right? The transition period, and that's why we have that, or why we recommend that ninth period conferencing. And though I will say that she doesn't love math, and she's not getting a or a high B that she's accustomed to at middle school. And that may be a lesson for us to say, well, if you're not really interested in that class, in that subject, perhaps it didn't make sense to put in the honor. So I will ask though, Ms. Ballison, and I apologize for my ignorance on this, do parents need to think about a math honors to then get into a science honors? Like, for example, in a science honors class, is there a prerequisite for an honors?
No.
Math? So you see, in other districts, there are that right. So that's one of those things where we were considering, and why we kind of pushed for the math honors. If that's not the case here, then I may have made a different decision. So my point is, I think if I can put it down, is I thought my daughter should just try as much as she possibly could to challenge her, and then we're going to make some adjustments accordingly next year. But it turned out to be very positive.
Question here about our bathrooms. We do have boys and girls bathrooms and gender neutral bathroom. All right, any last questions? These questions were great, and I wrote down all of the concerns that I wasn't able to address right now, and I'm going to work on them tomorrow and be able to send some more information out. So there's lots of questions here about the ninth grade day in August. So I do think that at a board meeting, so I do think the document is available somewhere, the proposed calendar for next year, right? The proposed school calendar. And on that calendar, it should say ninth graders only on that first day of school for Columbia High School. That's how it should read on that calendar. So it's whatever that first day of school is. The upperclassmen don't come. It's just ninth graders. So I believe that's available somewhere in the board minutes. So sorry, I don't have the exact date.
I don't have it either.
Can you take multiple languages? Yes, you can. That would, then take up the other period of an elective, but you can take multiple languages, yes. Can freshmen take Precalculus? Yes, if they took Algebra 2 this year, they can take Precalculus, or if they choose to do Algebra 2 in summer math advancement, they can take Precalculus. And keep in mind, even if you're planning on doing summer math advancement, you still need to, at this point, like let's say you were going to do Algebra 2 over the summer, you still need to request Algebra 2 for next year. Right now, it won't let you request anything else. But at the end of the math advancement program, we look at all the grades, see who passed, and we automatically change those schedules in August at that time. Question about opting out of PE again. So if you opt out of PE because you're in a sport, that's just you have to be in a sport where there's competition involved, and we would need to be verifying your participation with the coach. So that's all. That there would be nothing else that you would be doing in terms of physical activity other than your sport, your competitive sport.
And the student would be in a study hall.
Right.
Correct?
Yes, they would be placed in a study hall instead of.
Right. The student couldn't take another class. The student would be in a study hall for that marking period.
Okay, and still some questions here about the languages that you can take. So we do have Chinese, French, Italian, and Spanish. And yes, you can also do geometry over the summer. So you can do Algebra 1 geometry or Algebra 2 over the summer. So you can advance through any of those courses over the summer. And it doesn't have to be this summer, of course, it can be the following summer. So just keep that in mind. We do offer that so that your child can move ahead on the trajectory if they so choose. All right, Principal Sanchez, can you just speak a little bit more about why competition is necessary for the PE opt-out? I feel like that part's not my wheelhouse.
Sure. That's our policy. That is a policy I think you would see in nearly all districts when it comes to opt out. In fact, I would argue that I think many districts don't even allow outside activities. It's only their building activities or their school activities. So weightlifting, for example, this is the one we usually get. I would assume is, my son goes or daughter goes to the gym, and therefore that would count as aerobic activity. We would say no, unless your child participates in powerlifting competition, then absolutely we would put that in as a opt-out.
Thank you. Question here, do students get to select which period that they have a class in their schedule? No, they do not. That is not something that we're able to accommodate. And another question here, a good question. I know in the middle school, there is that math booster summer program where you can not, take a new full year class for credit, but you can like almost prep for the class that you're about to take. That's not what our program is. Ours is an advancement program where you take a full course, earn credit for it, and then you move on to the next course in the trajectory. So it's a little different. If my child is currently taking geometry in 8th grade, can they retake it in 9th grade? Yes. If your child is struggling really bad in math this year, I recommend that they retake it. And then they can always do math advancement to get back to where they were in the trajectory. So we can move back, we can move forward. We have a lot of flexibility there with the math trajectory. So if they don't feel ready to go on to Algebra 2 or just want to, brush up on the geometry again, they can absolutely retake it. Okay. All right, I want to thank everybody so much for logging on tonight and joining us. We are so excited to welcome your students next year. And we're here if you have any questions at all. Again, I do encourage you to reach out to your student's middle school counselor. And if you're unable to get the answers that you need, you can definitely reach out to me directly anytime. And I'll work really hard tomorrow on all these issues that came up tonight that I wasn't able to address. And I'll send out an update tomorrow with how that went and some more answers for you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Balisone. It's been a pleasure to have you leading our guidance department, or excuse me, our counseling department. You're doing a great job, and we are looking forward to having, and not that we want to get rid of any class, but we're looking forward to bringing in the freshman students. So I hope they're excited about it, because high school is great, and I'm sure they're a little nervous about it, but it's going to be fine.
And thank you so much for being here, Principal Sanchez. We're so lucky to have you at Columbia. All right. Have a good night, everybody. Stay safe.
Bye.